the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Once again, let me get myself set up as you guys join the broadcast. As I test my audio, make sure that everything is in place for us to get started, and we have a look at all this action that's going to be coming away on Monday Night Football. That's between Tottenham and Nottingham Forest. But mainly we'll be looking at the weekend results, specifically from Sunday, in regards to what they mean to the Premier League table and the rest for the top 5 finish. The rest are for not just the top 5, yes, or in regards to where teams finish, the rest for the Champions League places. Then we'll be looking at Liverpool's title. Then we'll see what Mikel Arteta has started doing in preparation for his game against PSG. So those are the things that we are going to be looking at today in a bit of depth. But like I said, I just need to test my my microphone. Hope you guys are able to hear me. I hope you guys are able to hear us as you join the broadcast, as others join the broadcast. Yes, as others do join the broadcast. Very, very, very interesting there. Very important that you do join the broadcast and we get things going in regards to everything that did transpire in the weekend. That's mainly on Sunday. Manchester United losing pretty much something that we had echoed on, that there's a possibility it could happen given all the energy they had dedicated to that victory from Thursday. So, anyways, like I said, let's get it all started. Where should we kick things off? Let's kick things off at Craven Cottage, where Chelsea had to leave it late to beat up against Fulham by 2-1. Alex Iwobi there scoring to give Fulham the lead, but that lead was cancelled out by an equalizer from George, and then in stoppage time, really in added time of normal time, that's in the 93rd minute, I do think, their summer signing in Pedro Neto salvaged their pursuit or ambitions of finishing in the top 5 so that they can secure a spot in next season's UEFA Champions League there by scoring that late winner in quite spectacular fashion. Excuse me. So very, very beautiful stuff. Very beautiful game of football that we did have there at Craven Cottage. Again, given that Chelsea had shared the spoils in a 2-2 draw with Ipswich Town in the previous weekend, never mind then losing midweek by 2-1, I really didn't go into that Fulham game with a lot of expectations or with a lot of confidence that Chelsea would really get a result. But whereas my prediction had been for Fulham to win it 2-1, I'm happy to have been disappointed or to have gotten it wrong because for everything that has gone right or wrong, especially in the second half of the season for Enzo Maresca, I really do wish Chelsea well. So thank you guys for joining the broadcast. Kindly leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Much appreciated. So, like I was saying, Chelsea, my expectations were really low, but I'm glad that they got this one right to keep that pursuit of the top 5 finish quite alive. And indeed, they did keep it alive because that race involves teams like Newcastle, Nottingham Forest, Chelsea, Manchester City, Aston Villa. They're all in that, in that pursuit of a top 5 place finish in order to secure a spot in the UEFA Champions League. So, but anyways, we'll leave matters of Chelsea at that and then head over to Arsenal, because Arsenal did sweep away Ipswich Town, beating them by 4-0 on a day that I thought they could have even scored as many as 7. Bukayo Saka, a culprit there, missing a couple of chances. I think about 3 chances in only the first half. So it was a very, very beautiful game of football. Of course, Ipswich Town had to finish the game with the madness after Leify Davis, yes, had a very, very bad tackle on Bukayo Saka's Achilles there, on the heels there. give him a stamp, and then in that stamp, it caused Bukayo Saka to kind of twist his ankle a little bit. And when you watch that particular clip in slow motion, it looked even the more dangerous. And in the first instance, with the hesitation of the referee, I think it was Chris Kavanagh, when he does hesitate to take action, I did not think he was going to set off a red card already. I thought maybe, okay, it's a foul, he's called it, it's going to give a free kick, maybe give a caution in a yellow card, and that was going to be it. But he dished out a red card, one upon the review of the VR, or video assistant referees, back in the back rooms. They did not disagree with his decision, so it was retained as the on-field decision, and it was a red card for Davis there for that dangerous foul on Bukayo Saka, which could have easily ended the England internationals' season. We all know that he's just returned in the last 3 weeks from that long spell injury of a hamstring. So clearly, it really did look dangerous. So Arsenal made it appear like a routine win because they were quite very impressive. They were dominant in every aspect right from the onset. Ipswich Town's chances were quite limited in the game. I thought the way Ipswich applied themselves was quite in such an open manner that they gave away a lot of spaces to Arsenal. Ipswich looked to mark spaces as opposed to, try and mark, bodies in some phases or sections of the game. And that really cost them, because it ended up creating so many gaps for Arsenal to exploit, and that's why you had so many passes into their box. Martin Odegaard involved in the action, full strength there. Zinchenko right in the thick of action. Gabi Martinelli, Bukayo Saka, Mikel Merino, I thought did have a very, very impressive game. In a fixture, by the way, that I did think that Mikel Arteta was trying to prepare for his tie against a PSG in the semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League. And here's why I think, for me, it was a prep for that particular upcoming fixture. One, especially when it came to his midfield, he dropped Thomas Partey from a 6, bearing in mind that he's not going to have him available for the first leg against PSG because he's suspended through that yellow card that he got at the Santiago Bernabeu in a minor altercation with Antonio Rudiger. Both players were given, red cards by the referee there. I think so. Because Thomas Partey will be absent for that first leg, that means that Mikel Arteta is now pondering how does he then set up his midfield in the absence of Thomas Partey. Also bearing in mind that Jorginho has a chest injury that he did suffer in the previous game, that was in the 1-1 draw against Brentford. So I think he's sort of imagining himself in that situation where he does not have Jorginho, he has not returned from injury, and then Thomas Partey is absent through suspension. How do I set up my midfield to compete? And if this is the manner in which I want to set it up, how do I make sure that they gel? He has 2 games to make that happen. And he started that yesterday against Ipswich by fielding Declan Rice at the base of the midfield, that's in the pivot role, Mikel Merino at left midfield, and then of course Martin Odegaard. Of course, then that means that Mikel Merino traditionally is your 8, which a role which he should be playing perfectly, because that's why he was signed. That he was signed to play as a midfielder. Do not be deceived by this new role of playing as a false 9, which he started in February against Leicester City after the injuries to Bukayo Saka and Gabriel Jesus. Let that not deceive you that he's not a midfielder. He's a very good midfielder, by the way. That's why he was very hell-bent on signing him, even when the transfer took as long as it did. So he started that midfield 3 to sort of prepare for that kind of action that will be coming his way in the semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League. So, and I thought they did really well. Declan Rice was again quite impressive. Of course, he had to be withdrawn early because the game really looked done and dusted or sealed, that it did appear that Arsenal could lose. It didn't appear that Ipswich Town could get themselves back in the game after going 2 goals down and that kind of thing. So, and again, unless something changes, because I do think that's the midfield he will be, fielding against PSG. Then the other game that he has to try out that very midfield is going to be against a very tricky opponent in Crystal Palace. Never mind that Crystal Palace have sort of fallen short in the months in recent times, including losing to Newcastle by 5 goals to nil midway last week on Wednesday. Then over the weekend, they did not have. I think they were involved in a goalless draw against Bournemouth. So that result as well. So you get the sense that again you will field the same midfield against Crystal Palace and then see how they fare, see if they are gelling all together in preparation for that fixture, because Arsenal do play Crystal Palace on Wednesday, that's in the midweek, but then they will not have a fixture over the weekend. So Arsenal's match day 34 is going to be played on Wednesday this week. So then over the weekend, they'll rest it out. So that means they will have from Thursday, of course, Thursday then is a recovery day or recovery session. And then they have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all that to train, and Monday to prepare to face off with PSG. I think on April 29th, there for the first leg of the semi-finals. So quite impressive start. So it was Leandro Trossard who opened the scoring for Arsenal there. Martin Odegaard providing the assist, basically scoring that goal while he was even down on the floor. Achu, hi Achu, thank you for tuning into the broadcast. Very much appreciated. I do appreciate your time. Kindly subscribe if you're new to the channel. Then that was in as early as the 14th minute, and then in the 28th minute or 14 minutes later, Gabriel Martinelli was on target. Mikel Moreno providing arguably the assist of the season with that back heel flick to make or provide the assist for Gabriel Martinelli, who scored to make it 2-0. And like I said, Leify Davis did a foul, Bukayo Saka in the 32nd minute, and he received his matching orders from Chris Kavanagh, who was the center referee on the day. And then of course it was 2-0 at halftime, and in the second half, Arsenal continued to dominate affairs. Declan Rice turning provider this time around for Leandro Trossard to score to make it 3-0. And now the goal was a result of a set piece. Never mind that it was not a header, but again, you saw Ipswich fall short of their defensive duties when it came to defending those corner kicks, because Arsenal were playing short corner kicks, and you thought that Ipswich would have done better to sort of mark those spaces, to close down those gaps and deny Arsenal that short corner kick start and try and build play. And when they fell short on that, then of course Leandro Trossard punished them. And then in the 88th minute, substitute Ethan Nwaneri there did score what turned out to be the fourth goal of the game, with Alexander Zinchenko providing the assist there. Remember, Alexander Zinchenko started at left back because Mikel Arteta switched things up. Besides the changes that he did make in the midfield, he had Alexander Zinchenko at left back. He had the defensive pairing of course William Saliba and Jakub Kiwior, and then at right back he had Ben White start. I think that was his first start since he suffered or he went for surgery on that knee injury, in as far as I can remember. So Urian Timber got the much needed rest that I thought he did deserve, and I do think really, given the way Timber has applied himself in recent times, that indeed he should be rested once again. The reason is because in recent times he's played so many games, and we've spoken about this before, that beyond playing so many games, he's done what? He's appeared to play through injury in some moments of those games, because you would see him to sort of get tackled, meet team doctors to come and treat him, and then he comes back and plays the entire 90 minutes or 80 minutes. But yesterday was much needed rest. Now, of course, Crystal Palace will be a much tougher opponent because they've won so many games away from home. Arsenal are going to be at home at the Emirates Stadium, as far as I'm concerned. and I do stand to be corrected, but we can confirm that fixture here again. Yes, Arsenal will be at home at the Emirates Stadium, and so they will really need to be on top of their game when they face Crystal Palace. Forget the bad results they've had in recent times, but away from home, of course, even the other result being that they were beaten up against Man City by 5 goals to 2. That was last weekend before losing to Newcastle. So never mind those results. I do think Juan Felipe Mateta will provide a very different test for this back pairing. Arsenal, Ebelechi Easy, who did score, missed a penalty against Newcastle, scored against Man City. Ismail Sarr in that, forward, attacking forward. Of course, you do have an Eddie Nketiah, former Arsenal player, in there in that squad. Dean Henderson in goal. Mark Gay, never mind that he considered an own goal in their loss to Newcastle, is a very good defender. They do have a Ben Chilwell, who is on loan from Chelsea, and all those that kind of setup. So I do think that Crystal Palace will really provide or give Arsenal a very, very different test in that game on Wednesday, as Mikel Arteta tries to figure out what will be his best starting 11 when he faces off PSG. Now, of course, PSG are a different ball game altogether in comparison to all these, teams, in comparison to Ipswich, in comparison to Crystal Palace. Because with PSG, you're talking about players like Ousmane Dembele, Ivica Kvaratskhelia, Desire Doué, you're talking about Bakola, you're talking about Petinia, Fabian Ruiz, João Neves in that midfield. You're talking about Nuno Mendes, very, very decent left back, goes in front and scores goals. You're talking about Achraf Hakimi, who has I think as a combined goal contribution of 20 in goals and assists, about 6 goals and 14 assists across all competitions this season. So that's the kind of player that you're talking about. William Pacho in that defense, very, very decent side. Gigi Donnarumma in goal, very, very decent side in Paris Saint-Germain. So they will be giving Arsenal a very, very huge test for that coming up fixture. So anyways, we'll have to wait until Wednesday and then see what kind of team that Mikel Arteta does really field. Again, I do suspect, and this is knowing how Mikel Arteta operates, or having observed him over the last course of 5 years, I wouldn't be surprised if Arsenal, given that they do not have a weekend fixture, in preparation for PSG, they do get a test match behind closed doors at London Colney. Now, of course, that will be hard, given that most teams are engaged in terms of the Premier League, Championship, or wherever they could have invited a team. But it could be maybe versus the under 21s or the under 18, or a split side of the Arsenal squad, again, to test different modes of play, to test so many things out, because Mikel Arteta, better than anyone else, does know for a fact that the PSG that they did first in the first leg will be very, very much different from the PSG that they do tackle at the knockout stages of the UEFA Champions League when it comes to these quarter finals. So really, it will be a different ball game altogether there for Arsenal. But anyway, let's move away from Arsenal and speak other teams as far as the Premier League is concerned, and let's go all the way to Manchester United, because United did lose to Wolverhampton Wanderers by a goal to nil. That means that Wolverhampton Wanderers have completed the league double against the Red Devils. Now, again, when we're speaking about in the preview of this particular game, there were two things that we really considered. One, that either Manchester United could leverage on their success from Thursday, beating Lyon 5-4 in quite spectacular fashion, in which they did it to give their fans more joy at home, at Old Trafford. But also, we also mentioned that Wolves could capitalize on the tiredness of Manchester United from that fixture on Thursday to beat them. Well, it may not have been the tiredness overall that decided the game, but absolutely it was a factor, because the United that played on Thursday was not the United that played on Sunday against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Of course, Wolverhampton Wanderers needed just that one goal from Pablo Sarabia, a very decent free kick that he took to beat, to beat Andre Onana in goal to win it all for Wolverhampton Wanderers there. Now, one of the interesting things that again we did witness in this Manchester United side was Taylor Fredrickson, who was started in that back three with Victor Lindelof and Mazzaroli. Again, because of the tiredness, because the manager knows, Ruben Amorim, that the Europa League is now the priority. He did not bother risking his players, like in starting them, the likes of Harry Maguire, the likes of Lenny Yoro, and that kind of thing. He gave them the rest. And so these changes were pretty much expected. Casemiro was a rested man as Christian Eriksen started ahead with Manel Agate in that midfield. Of course, Patrick Dogu on the as an attacking wing back, and then Harry Amas, one of those, Alejandro Garnacho, Kobe Mino, and then of course you had Rasmus Højlund. Now, Kobe Mino in that role of more like an 8 or even a 10, depending on how the roles are defined. Again, you get the sense that it's a miscalculation. Yes, he came on against Lyon and scored, but I do not think that's his best position to play. Maybe as an 8 would be a much better role. On the other side, of course, Ryan Afonori was one of those that kept being the small stone in Manchester United's shoe on the day, but it is what it is. Unfortunately for Manchester United, it's 38 points from 33 Premier League games. That's how bad a season United have had as far as the Premier League is concerned. Now, of course, for whoever finishes between second, yes, actually, thanks for keeping it locked on the live broadcast. Much appreciated. For United to, like I said, for whoever finishes between second and maybe even 10th or 8th in the Premier League log to qualify for Europe and any other achievements therein, including Newcastle who won the Carabao Cup. If Manchester United go ahead and win the UEFA Europa League, we'll come back on this very channel and discuss who will have had the most successful season. Of course, there will be so many things to debate and compare. Anyways, let's leave things of Manchester United at that, because it is no longer surprising when Manchester United lose a game. Not even the manner in which that they lose is a surprise. I mean, everything is almost the same, really. So not much is expected of them as far as the Premier League is concerned. I do not think they even still have their reputation to fight for, because again, as far as this season is concerned, it's not there. If they were 8th on the Premier League table, maybe we could say, yes, there's reputation to fight for. If they were 10th, but yeah, 14th on the Premier League log, that's where they're languishing down there. Anyway, we'll see in a bit what the Premier League table looks like and where Manchester United sit. Then the final game of Super Sunday, we did witness Liverpool again almost seal the Premier League title when they beat up against Leicester City by 1-0. That goal hardly fought and scored by Alexander Trent-Arnold, who pulled off his shirt and hung it on the corner flag there, as if in a way to bid farewell in spectacular fashion to the traveling Liverpool fans. But the way in which he celebrated was wild and special as the moment in itself, because one, Liverpool had hit the upright, I think in the first half through Mohamed Salah. Leicester City had also hit the upright, I think through Mavididi, and then of course chances came far between for Leicester on a day that they needed a win to ensure that they are not relegated on the same day. But their fate in the Premier League is as good as sealed. They are relegated officially. They will be playing for their reputation for the remaining 5 fixtures until the end of the season. It's confirmed they will be playing in the Championship next season. along with Southampton, along with Ipswich Town, all teams that pretty much what we expected or predicted at the start of the season. For those of you that do remember, or for those of you that have followed our channel really for that long, you remember when we were making our start of the season predictions, and those were the teams to be relegated. Most disappointing for us is Manchester United. We thought they will be in the mix of the teams that would fight for the top four positions, because I remember in those teams I mentioned Aston Villa, Chelsea, Manchester United, Newcastle, and Aston Villa. Now, I think even Tottenham Hotspur was one of those teams. Maybe Spurs was the other team, although I did not think they would make it, because I remember Chelsea were finishing fifth in our predictions on that table. However, Chelsea are up there, of course, fighting for that place. Tottenham Hotspurs are down with Manchester United. So really, that's how bad they've done it to us in as far as disappointing our predictions goes. But I think United and Spurs really go the lowest. Nottingham Forest, I did not expect them to be where they are. They are sixth on the Premier League table. Those ones do play today when they face off with Tottenham, a fixture that we're going to be looking at in just a bit. So, following those run of results, of course, we all know that Liverpool are now one win away from winning the Premier League title. In fact, they may not need a win to win the Premier League title. If Crystal Palace beat up against Arsenal, or if Arsenal fail to beat up against Crystal Palace, that means that even if it's a draw, then again, the title is called really, in essence. So Liverpool are simply champions in waiting. Of course, I do not think that Arsenal will give it a chance. They will look to delay it for Liverpool to extend it to the weekend. While Arsenal will be absent in action, Liverpool will be in action next weekend. That pretty much we know. But that's the reality, that Liverpool are going to be lifting the Premier League title at 79 points. Arsenal at 66 points in second place, 13 points adrift of the top place team. Newcastle, who lost 1 against Aston Villa. We did review that action here on the live broadcast on Saturday. That so is in that place, and then just a point ahead of Manchester City, who occupy fourth on the Premier League table. Chelsea a point behind Manchester City at 57, and then of course we do know that Nottingham Forest in 6th place and in 7th place Aston Villa are all tied on 57 points. It's goal difference that separates all sides. Of course, we do know that Nottingham Forest have that game still to play, because they do play Tottenham Hotspur tonight, and that's why it's a very important game. So that's as far as the rest for a top 5 finish in the Premier League goes. And then, like I said, Manchester United are 14, 38 points from 33 games. Quite very disappointing for Manchester United. Then Tottenham Hotspurs are 16th because of that Wolves victory against Manchester United. They managed to leapfrog, Tottenham, and Tottenham are now 16th on the Premier League clock, with just a point ahead of West Ham United, who are 17th. So that's a clear tale of how bad things have been for Tottenham this season. Of course, majority of their problems had to do with injuries over the course of the season. They lost their goalkeeper in Guillermo Vicario for quite a long spell. They had injuries to Dominic Solanke. They've had injuries to almost every player that matters. Mickey van de Ven, Cristiano Romero, of course, Richarlison has always been in and out of the team ever since joining them from Everton in that £60 million deal. I mean, Dejan Kulusevski, James Maddison, they did miss those players for quite a bit of time, and I thought that affected their season quite terribly. But also the stubbornness of Ange Postecoglou, not really wanting to switch things up tactically, wanting to stick to his guns, even when it doesn't suit them against certain opponents, has also really cost them. But it goes without saying that they are now into the semi-finals of the UEFA Europa League there. So I think they will be playing up against Bodo Glimt for the semi-finals, while United will be up against Athletic Bilbao in the other semi-final. Um, yes. So those were the results from the weekend from the Premier League on Super Sunday. For those of you that would be interested in knowing what transpired on Saturday, just go and just go to the channel, check out and our live broadcast, and you see where we did discuss that victory for Aston Villa against Newcastle in that fixture. So really, really, very, very important victory there for Unai Emery's side, as they went 19 games unbeaten at Villa Park, because that means they have 13 victories and 6 draws from the last 19 games played at Villa Park, a place where they've been really, really impressive. Now, the catch for Aston Villa and Newcastle is that Newcastle last season had the test of playing in the UEFA Champions League, and they really enjoyed that. We saw what happened when they beat PSG, I think at St. James's Park. I think they did face off with Borussia Dortmund at one point, and AC Milan as among the teams that were in their group. So they had a taste of that. The fans still want that taste, the aura, the experience of a UEFA Champions League night at your home stadium, or even if you're traveling. And then that's why they really have to fight for a top 5 place finish. And I do think they may really get it. Ed Howe could soon return to the touchline after battling pneumonia in hospital. Of course, it's been just Jason Tindo there, or Jason Tindo on the touchline for the last 3 games. And then Unai Emery, of course, Aston Villa once again, I think since 1982-1983, when they were last in Europe. Of course, they did go on to beat Bayern Munich in the finals in Rotterdam, I think by 1-0. So for the first time, they were testing European Champions League nights back on home soil. That's at Villa Park. They beat Bayern Munich at that very stadium, I think by 1-0. They had quite an impressive run. As in the league format, they finished 8th. So really, they will be fighting to make sure that they get more of that at their grounds next season. And I think they could achieve it. They won't leave anything to chance. They'll have a go at it. So tonight, like I say, Nottingham Forest are up against Tottenham Hotspurs. Nottingham Forest have not been in good form. They've lost their last 2 games. But prior to that, they had won the previous 3, including beating up against Man City by 1-0, dismissing Ipswich in a 4-2 victory, beating Manchester United by 1-0. We all remember that game. But after that, they did lose to Aston Villa by 2-1 and lost to Everton by 1-0. That goal scored by Abdoulaye Diakore in stoppage time. So their recent form doesn't really offer them much favors, but that of Tottenham Hotspurs in comparison is one that is quite worrisome, because, they've managed only 1 win in the last 5 fixtures, in which they beat up against Southampton by 3-1. Then they've managed 1 draw, and all the other 3 have been losses. That draw coming up against AFC Bournemouth in a 2-2 draw. Their losses have come against Wolverhampton Wanderers, who beat them by 4-2 last weekend. And then they lost to Chelsea by 0-0. They did lose to Fulham in that North London derby by 2-0. So when it comes to form, when it in the Premier League, really, Tottenham Hotspurs don't have it. Nottingham Forest may not have it, but Tottenham Hotspurs do not have it either. And then we're talking about a Nottingham Forest side that also beat them in the first leg by 0-0. Although in their last, couple of fixtures or last meetings across the league, dating as far back as 2022, 2023, and then through last season. Last season, Tottenham beat Nottingham Forest home and away 3-1 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and 2-0 away from home, while the season before that, again, Spurs beat Nottingham by 3-1 at home. They also beat them 2-0 away from home. Now, Nottingham Forest will be looking to complete their first season double in 3 seasons against Tottenham Hotspurs, which I do think they are very capable. Anthony Elanga, Chris Wood, very, very decent form or good season he's had. I think his tally should be about 18, Premier League goals. Callum Hudson-Odoi has been a giant killer. He punished Man City, he punished Liverpool at Anfield, and that kind of thing. Then, of course, Ola Aina, Morgan Gibbs-White, Timothy Awoni coming off the bench. He's not had the best of seasons and that kind of thing. But they do have that defender. Is it called Miljankovic? That defender, the Nottingham Forest defender, quite the revelation in the player. Their goalkeeper in Mark Flecken, I think, has the most clean sheets, as many as 13 or 14 so far this season in the Premier League. So Nottingham Forest is a very, very decent side. Yes, Tottenham Hotspurs may have won away against Eintracht Frankfurt thanks to Dominic Solanke. You do think that this is going to be a very different test for them against Nottingham Forest. We all know how, sorry, just checking the microphone that it's still on. We all know how defensively solid that Nottingham Forest can be. Even when they've lost, they've really not lost with very huge margins. And it's upon that basis that because Nottingham Forest are fighting to finish in the top 5, because they're really so close to it. They're really so close to it. That's why I think they will have the edge over Tottenham Hotspurs and possibly beat them by a goal to nil or by 2-1 in tonight's fixture. That game will be kicking off at 10 p.m. East African time. So when that time comes, we'll review all that action and let you know how it goes. Maybe, but we do expect a very, very wonderful game of football. We do expect Anandal. Thank you so much. You're really, really, brother. Thank you so much. Well appreciated. For those that are new to the channel at Footballtribeug, kindly hit that subscribe button. Kindly leave me a like on this podcast so that content can be recommended to other, content viewers on the channel. On YouTube. But you're much appreciated. I do not take your time for granted. I really, really, really do appreciate it. The time that you take, to watch these broadcasts. And for those of you that watch them much later, after we're done with the live editions, I do not take your time for granted. You're very much appreciated. Just remember to leave us a like, a comment, a question, an opinion, a view, your thought, and do subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, allow me to wrap it here for now and wish you a wonderful rest of the day. See you next time, guys. Stay blessed and have a wonderful Easter Monday and a blessed new week ahead. Bye-bye.